this content is for kids.
It's not for kids.
Isn't that what I said?
No, it's not for kids. If you are 13 years or younger, this is not for you. Do I have to kill somebody in order to actually make that point across?
No, man, you don't have to kill
Wait
no
a
one.
second.
No.
When we return to our planet, the High Court may well sentence you to torture.
He likes movies, we like movies. Septum Sin versus the world. 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 I'd buy that for $1.
Greetings to all you people out there in movie land. Here we are again with another wondrous journey into the vlogosphere as we talk about entertainment, where others also talk about entertainment, but where they fall flat, we will also fall flat. And this is the Vlogcast.
But we'll fall even harder.
So, this is Septum Sen. Of course, I am here with Kotobuki Jake.
All right.
And we're going to be talking a little bit about our normal things. We're hitting the normal format again. We're gonna have a couple of vlogcasts. And then, after we have our... So, let's talk about our YouTube update.
Okay.
So, this was supposed to be our best of 2019, but we're trying to get a little bit of it up, so we're delaying that. Well, 2 weeks from now, you're going to see our 2019 movie.
All right.
And we keep throwing this NIS thing down the road. We keep kicking it down the road. We're going to have to set this... okay. Second week of March, we will do the NIS video.
Is that the week following the top 19?
Yes.
Okay, that works.
We will do it on that date.
Yes.
Now, next week we'll just do another vlogcast, but hopefully we won't have as much on the front end, so we've got a lot of mini reviews to talk about.
A lot.
So, this week, otherwise, this is about a regular one. I got back to the DVD and movie strolls. I've got a number of actual reviews upcoming. I have the 2 Death Toilet movies. I've got the Banana Splits movie. And I have the anime series Miami Guns. So some fun stuff. I filmed them, but I didn't like how I sounded on the filming, so I'm going to try again. I'm just going to do them one at a time. Next week I plan on releasing Death Toilet, and then Miami Guns, and then finally Banana Splits movie.
All right.
So with that being said, why don't we keep going down to our things? We've got a couple of things that I'm skipping, but I guess we will move on to Kotobuki Jake's ongoing viewing.
Aha. Well, I had some ongoing viewing. Since it's been so flippin' long since we've done this,
Most of it should be
a
fun.
lot of things have come and gone completely since then. I will say, in the larger sphere of things, I am ongoing with the Arrowverse, and I have started a new section of the Arrowverse, which has got me working on Season 2 of Supergirl, Season 3 of Flash, Season 5 of Arrow, and I've finally started DC's Legends of Tomorrow, so Season 1 there. I'm just a few episodes in on each one of those, but it's good times.
Well, you know, the latest season is going to have the Infinite Earth storyline on it, so that's going to be cool. When I get it, I'll actually have that entire storyline.
And then as far as some of the ongoing, I believe I had mentioned in an earlier one that I thought I was going to be finished with The Promised Neverland. No. It's a much longer manga than I thought. Volume 12 essentially wraps up the first major story arc. There are minor arcs before them, but you could say it's a wrap-up of the major arc. But it's really just the beginning. So I have gotten that far, as well as additional volumes. I got through the Thriller Bark arc of One Piece. I've read some additional My Hero Academia and a large chunk of Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. So that's been some fun ongoing reading. Yeah.
You're way ahead of me on that. I'm still watching that season 4 of it.
Yeah. Well, you're way ahead of me on the viewing.
So, let's see here.
Okay,
go ahead.
I'm going to forget if I put it back. But actually, that's one of the bits of entertainment news I'm just going to mention, because you're right, I have read further than they've animated so far. But, so have you gotten to anything that tells you anything about Gentle and La Brava?
Which one? That's the guy who is the mob boss, right?
No, Gentle is a, quote, criminal vigilante who is like he's not a vigilante, he's a criminal whose exploits are webcast online by his she would be his ain true love, but his faithful companion La Brava. You could almost think of her as a Harley Quinn type, but less crazy. But the big news that for My Hero Academia fans is that not only are the two of them coming into the new season, but they're going to be voiced by two of the legends of anime. They're going to be two legendary seiyuu. Gentle is going to be voiced by Koichi Yamadera, the guy who voiced Spike Spiegel and Ryoga Hibiki and any number of other great characters over the years. And La Brava is going to be voiced by Yui Horie, which, if there has been any tsundere character not voiced by Rie Kugamiya, it's probably been Horie. But she's also done a lot of other really great roles over the years, and both of them are tremendously talented seiyuu, and the idea of them coming in for these particular roles, I can't wait.
Oh, well, we go ahead into the entertainment news section since you've got that started.
Okay. Well, like I said, I didn't mean to skip ahead, but I knew I would forget that if I didn't. As far as the entertainment news, there's been a lot of casting news, a lot of news about releases. Some of it's not worth mentioning, but some of it is intriguing to me. And probably the most intriguing bit that comes to mind, although I'm debating the wisdom of this, is that Disney has already greenlit Aladdin 2.
I didn't need to know that.
I'm trying to think what else I had on my... Did you have any more for this particular section?
Oh, I had prepared just for reviews.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I thought I had another entertainment one, but nothing's coming to mind.
Well, you can always save it for next week.
Exactly.
So, deaths. Actually, release news.
Release news. Big news. I love this. I'm very, very happy about this. Criterion does a really good job of announcing about, 2 to 3 months in advance. They'll put out their April slate, I think is their current one. So they're actually a little bit behind right now. There are ribs in that thing. That's why he's trying so hard to get it. The bones, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anderson is very interested in something on the table.
He got released from his confinement.
Yes. So the biggest release news is via Criterion. They have not put these out as official, like with a street date and everything, because they're not part of the upcoming slates, but they went ahead and announced some stuff that's forthcoming. And one of the big things they announced is that they are indeed going to release a Criterion edition of the newly minted Best Picture winner Parasite.
Huh?
Yes, which I am very excited about, and I now officially am not buying the edition that you got. I will be waiting for Criterion.
I'm kind of disappointed because they should have waited.
And then they also have already announced another Bong Joon-ho film, one that most people don't even know of, called Memories of Murder. Now, I'm really hoping that they will go ahead and release Snowpiercer, Okta, and Mother as well. But still, 2 of his films on Criterion, it's awesome. Also, one of the year's most acclaimed foreign films that was ineligible for Oscar because of stupid rules, but that was on a lot of people's year-end best-of lists. The French film Portrait of a Lady on Fire will be getting a Criterion release. And this is the other big one. This is almost as big as Parasite. My theory, in the wake of their releasing Roma, appears to have some weight to it. They announced not 1, not 2, 4 Netflix films that will be getting the Criterion treatment.
Oh.
They announced the film Atlantics, which I'm kind of surprised of all things they picked that. But they've also officially announced that American Factory, Marriage Story, and
cool.
The Irishman will be getting Criterion editions. So, this is awesome. So we need you to get on the ball and also announce the 2 Popes, Edge of Democracy, and Dolomite Is My Name, and Mudbound, and Beast of No Nation. But still, it is nice that those others are coming out. I'm excited. I don't know when, but maybe in time for November.
That'll be cool to see it actually released.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, I had a line, and I will probably be getting American Factory early because I got a $10 screener.
Oh, nice.
I think. I may have not won that auction.
I'd still wait for Criterion for that.
Well, I didn't think they were going to release it.
And Icarus. They need to put Icarus out in physical release.
So
You do have that one, I know, but
we will see how it goes.
we will.
So, deaths.
Big one. Big one. That I honestly kept forgetting the guy was even still alive, but pretty much an icon in Hollywood. Kirk Douglas, of course. This is not exactly fresh news for anyone that pays attention. They even had him in the in memoriam at Oscar, surprisingly. I think it was 3 days before?
Yeah.
That, but still, it's worth a shout out. Kirk Douglas was acting back at least mid-50s. I feel like earlier than that. He starred in 2 Stanley Kubrick films. He starred in Paths of Glory, which is widely renowned as one of Kubrick's biggest classics.
Yes.
And then his biggest film, which he disowned because he did as a director for hire, was Spartacus, which notably, in addition to that, was also notable because Douglas had enough power in Hollywood that he fought for and got an on-screen credit for blacklisted writer Dalton Trumbo. So that's a pretty notable little bit of Hollywood there, too. And, of course, Douglas was around for years and years and years. And he and his son Michael, I think, did a couple things together. I didn't realize Michael Douglas was already 75 years old, but it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean,
But Kirk Douglas was 100 he was 103.
Long before his time, he passed.
He was he had a good run on this earth. That's he lived as long at least as Betty White probably will.
Ate nothing but bacon grease and kale.
I don't know, but I definitely wanted to give him a shout out. I mean, it's, if nothing else, 103 for someone in Hollywood. That's it seems unheard of. But
Okay.
yeah, what else?
We got all the deaths.
Well, that was the only one I really had that I was really going to work on.
All right. First impressions, things that you have started.
Well, I've started one, and my first impression is weird. I probably should have learned my lesson with the first book by this author. The author who did the Brief History of 7 Killings, Marlon James. That was an excellent book, but it was hard to read. And so he has a new fantasy book, not new at this point, it was like last year, but it's a book called Black Leopard, Red Wolf. I've been working my way through this book. Let's just say it won't be to all tastes. And it's a tough read, but it's fascinating. So, yeah.
Yeah. I decided to dive once again into the BioShock collection, and you know, before I go to bed, if I'm trying to keep myself awake, if I try and watch something while I'm in that bed, I fall asleep. But if I'm playing something, I'm usually more awake. And that game, the way that you got these dark corners, and these people like yelling and screaming things at you, and they're all hostiles, so they're pretty nasty.
I'm sorry, you finished that idea.
So, you know, it's good to do it. I've never actually played or beaten the third game in the series, so I plan on trying to eventually get to that.
All right.
More freshly watched? Or?
No, news. I totally forgot, but my mind sucks, so this is why I forgot stuff. The biggest entertainment news of the week. Did you hear what happened with in France, the Césars and everything?
No.
Okay, this is huge. You know, everyone talks about, you know, Oscars so white, and how the BAFTAs are even more lily white than the Oscars, and basically a lot of these world organizations really, really need to step up their game and get with the times. But one thing we can say about the Academy, even though they did a bitch-ass cowards version of doing this, they did kick out Roman Polanski. This was after years and years of soft-pedaling what he was accused of awarding him an Oscar. Granted, The Pianist is one of the greatest films of all time, but still, they should not have awarded him an Oscar for when these things were still going on.
Well, this one's that's the difference, though. That one actually has been shown to be true.
And this is where the Oscar. But my point is, they really bitched out on that. They did nothing until they kicked Bill Cosby out, and then in the same breath, and we're going to kick out Roman Polanski. That's it. They didn't come out and do it separately with, not fanfare, but you know what I mean? Like, they looked like they were taking the coward's way out, and it just looked bad. But they did do it. He's only the fourth person ever kicked out of the Academy. The Césars, his newest film, was up for so many Césars that it sparked outrage in the French film industry. They were furious. Over 200 people signed an open letter saying that they needed a complete overhaul. I don't know if you know anything about the Academy behind the Césars, but it's a small private group with a board of directors who basically call all the shots. And the people in the group are able to vote, but they're not able to do anything big.
Okay.
You know? So it's even worse than the Oscars in terms of the structure. There was such an outcry. The president came out and said, "I'm sorry, I really didn't mean to step on any toes. We'll do some stuff. We'll put some forms in place, whatever." And everyone's like, "No, man, that's not enough." So the entire governing board of the Césars resigned. The entire board. And they're going to start over from scratch, supposedly. I don't know that they'll be able to do anything about this year's awards. It's probably going to move forward as business as usual. But it's kind of enheartening to see that this group has been
about time.
Some serious change being made. But who knows? We might actually see more Americans than Kristen Stewart get up for stuff. But, well, I guess Polanski... No, he was Polish by birth, wasn't he? But whatever. So this was a very big thing, and I can't believe I forgot it, because that put some shockwaves through quite a bit of the industry last week.
So,
Yeah.
So what else you got for us?
I think that's it.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure this time.
Is that your final answer?
Oh, no. Regis Philbin was named new head of Disney.
Because once we move into this section, there's no going back. Once we start eating this,
Right. Well, technically, we've got at the movie. Well, that's going to be pretty big too.
I've only got 3 that I can recall,
Yeah.
because I can't recall too far back before the Oscar viewing.
Well, we have at least 2 together because I have I have 2 here that we both did.
Oh yeah, I remember that now.
Yeah.
Because we watched. I was thinking there was another one.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we start with the 2 that we did watch together? The big one that we thought was going to win Best Picture,
Yeah.
and we're surprised in a good way.
Yeah, I mean that in a good way.
Goodish way. That Parasite won instead.
Yeah.
But we're talking about the movie 1917, and boy, that was one heck of a ride.
Yeah.
I actually really liked that film. I was quite impressed with it. And in theater, that film had to have been seen in theaters. There was no not seeing that in theaters. It was too epic to not.
I'm sure it'll still be epic on the small screen, but it was epic on the big screen.
That's a good 4K film.
Right.
I mean, of course, it's a film that is a World War I film. For those of you who don't know what it is at this point, it's a World War I film.
Or if you couldn't guess from the title.
Yeah. Obviously, it's talking about the Vietnam War. It's about these people in the trenches.
Yeah.
And they're trying to take this message across enemy lines to another unit in order to try and prevent them from getting slaughtered.
Mm-hmm.
And this is about their epic journey together.
Right.
Well, for part of it, anyway.
Right.
And that's the whole of it. It's a very poignant story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for those who think that it's not, just watch the final scene.
My goodness.
But yeah, so that was a really good one. And then the other one that we both saw, of course, was Ford v Ferrari, which if you watch this week's new releases, you've heard our spiel on this one.
Yeah.
But we'll just reiterate, this was another one that was kick-ass to see in the theaters. It really deserved the big screen treatment, and I believe we were right front and center for this one, so it was pretty cool.
So, well, one I saw, we were going for what would have been a twofer, but I had to work.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to see Jojo Rabbit, and I was going to see Jojo Rabbit the next day because my wife was at work, and I would go and see it. So I went, and it was sold out, and it was raining horribly. And I'm like, I'm not leaving this theater until it stops raining. It was not supposed to stop raining for almost an hour. So I was like, so what is playing and has seats? They said, well, Bombshell has only 2 people in it. I'm like, well, give me a ticket to Bombshell. I've got to see it anyway. And so I watched Bombshell, and I was very happy to have seen it. I probably would have been happier watching Jojo Rabbit in theaters because it was a lot cheaper to rent Bombshell than it was to rent Jojo Rabbit. But it was fun. And for those of you who don't know, Bombshell is about the whole Roger Ailes controversy, where he had been kind of sexually harassing all of these women working at Fox News, and the lead up to revealing the whole thing. It was a very intense movie. I really liked it, and I would like to say it did deserve its makeup win.
Yes. I mean, John Lithgow is almost unrecognizable as Ailes. He's just But yeah, we've talked on that too. It's definitely. And then we'll go ahead and say, since he mentioned Jojo Rabbit was my next one I was going to cover because it was immediately after Ford v
Yeah.
Ferrari. It made a really nice tonal balance between the two. They were nice kind of. That one wasn't as essential to see on the big screen, although I'm not going to complain about that. It was kind of cool. And it's just a fun movie. It's not going to be to all tastes because it does tread into uncomfortable territory, but it does so in the name of exposing
Yeah.
ignorance and injustice, and to that end, I say bravo.
And that little kid can dance.
And that little kid can dance. The girl can dance too. I mean,
So then finally that last day, I had one movie a day for that weekend.
yeah.
That next morning, I went out fresh and early, and I had bought a ticket to this when I went ahead because I didn't want to have it sold out, but
Right.
I didn't worry about that, which was Little Women,
Yeah.
which I also saw in the theater with only like 3 people because it was 10:30 in the morning.
And because I think you saw it 2 or 3 months after it came out.
Yeah, well, it had a lot of
True.
hype. The Little Women won costume design, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so, I mean, it's Little Women. It's the
Yeah.
same story that they've told in movies over and over and over. I think I've not... This is actually the first time I've watched Little Women, the story, by the way.
Really?
Yeah. I
I have
have...
seen the 94 version.
I have like a whole bunch of them sitting here. Let's see here. JK. I have like most of the releases, I believe. I'm going to take a look real quick. Yeah, there's one here next to Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
I've got 2 of the releases. I've got the Winona Ryder one, and I've got the one over here.
Yeah, those are definitely the most famous ones. I think that one was, what, from like 39 or something?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Oscar winners.
Yeah.
So it was I'm glad to finally seen it.
It's structurally very different from the Winona Ryder one, but the story is the same. It's just the emphasis on Joe as a writer, I think, is much stronger in the new film. And it is, of course, Saoirse Ronan is phenomenal as Joe.
Yeah.
The acting overall was pretty damn solid.
She had a running for Best Actress,
Oh,
but
she
it was a long shot
Right.
versus Renee Zellweger.
Now, this is where my memory starts to break down. I had not been good at taking notes, and it's been a long time since we got a good, solid update on this. But I will say that I did see at least one more in theaters, and at least one more I think we can count for this section. And the one more that I know that I went to see was Makoto Shinkai's Weathering with You,
Yeah, yeah.
which came out. I ended up actually seeing the English dub. I kind of wish I could have seen the other one, but just the timing didn't work out right. They would only do the English dub in the afternoon, and I wanted to see it in the afternoon. That was just the way my schedule worked out. But whatever, it's still a good dub. And I was very impressed. The film is nowhere near as awesome as Your Name, but it's still pretty freaking awesome. It is a gorgeous movie. Even though it's depressing because of all the rain that comes down all through it, it takes skill to animate rain like that. It really does. And
Reminded me of Garden of Words, the concept.
a little bit, but much longer and much more complex than Garden of Words. And not quite as depressing, because that one was a little bittersweet. And more bittersweet than depressing. This one had a moment in it where, and this was for the, honestly, the biggest issue with Weathering with You is that it kind of jumps the shark at one moment. There's a moment that's absolutely gut-wrenching. And it's like, is this the end of the movie? Holy crap, what an ending. It's like, it's as depressing as 5 centimeters per second, but what an ending. and then they undo it with the final act. It's what am I trying to say? Uneven because of this. But it's still a very good film. It's very entertaining. It does get into the weighty issues of loss and separation that Shinkai's obsessed with. And the basic gist of it is it follows a young man who's run away from home and comes to Tokyo, only to find that Tokyo has been in the grip of constant rain for some time. And he meets a girl. Well, first he meets a guy who offers him a job, and it's one of those kind of ne'er-do-well kind of characters. He runs a trash rag about like paranormal stuff, and he has a secretary, quote unquote, who works with him, who you eventually find out is his niece. That's a minor spoiler. I don't think it matters. And the kid starts working with him, and they investigate the concept of a sunshine girl, and he meets one. And she, of course, the two of them develop a pretty strong relationship, and, you know, it goes from there. I won't say much more because I don't want to spoil it, but one very cool small treat that I had that's kind of a mixed bag because it colors the ending of Your Name. This one takes place in the same universe after the events of Your Name, which you know when the young man goes to a shop and the shop girl has a certain familiar thread in her hair and you see her tag that says Mizutani. I thought that was a really cool cameo. But then it also goes, oh man, so those two end up living in constant rain after that? So, I don't know.
Well, is that all your theater?
Yeah, well, no, there's one more.
I don't have any
sort
more,
of.
so.
Oh, okay. This one doesn't really count for theater, but I did go to a public screening, so it still counts for at the movies. And it's one that I really want to talk about. And it's one of the films that got more so than most other films. And this is a long list with a lot of contenders. One of the films that got most egregiously reamed by the Oscars this year. One of the most egregious snubs was Lulu Wang's The Farewell, which they did a screening of it at University of Richmond as part of a event called China Fest. And so I went to see it, and they had a couple of technical snafus that caused some glitches in the not as bad as the glitches during the Oscar ceremony, specifically during Eminem's performance, but still enough to be distracting at times. But The Farewell is a very charming little movie. It's a movie about a family whose matriarch is dying of cancer. But her sister makes the executive decision not to tell her. Basically, to tell her, no, the doctor said everything's fine. You're good. You're good to go. She lets the family know, but she tells them all, do not let her know. So then we go to New York, where we are introduced to a young lady who's played by Awkwafina, and she goes to her parents to visit for the night, and her father's played by Zima. I didn't even recognize him, but he was he's always a treat when I see him in movies, and they are kind of downbeat. Actually, he is on his bed on the verge of tears, and she's like, what's up? What's going on? What? And he won't talk. And then finally the mother comes in and explains the situation. And she's like, and we are going to China, and we're saying it's for your cousin's wedding. And she's like, I didn't know he was getting married. Well, we're going to have a wedding, you know, and it's like a cover story for the family to get together. They have this arranged wedding. The cousin who lives in Japan, the poor girl that gets roped into this. It's kind of fun. That's their cover for the entire family to come together. They weren't going to invite this girl because they're like, you're too emotional. Your emotions are on your face. You'll give it away. You'll give the whole thing away. And then she's like, looks at her father like, look at him. So they do end up going without her, but then she makes the decision a week or so later and goes on her own. Basically uses every dime she has to get to China. And basically from there you just have this family dramedy. It's kind of lighthearted for the most part, but there's like that undercurrent. The kid who came back from Japan with his family is... The two of them really do look like a deer in headlights. Like there's no affection between them. They're like, it looks like two friends. Like the parents probably said, "Oh, y'all are friends. We should get you married." It's like, and then of course the grandmother is just in a sense she's kind of a Betty White-ish character, but not as foul-mouthed. She's just this charming. Lets everyone in, very, it was really good. It was great performances. I fully agree. Awkwafina was robbed of a nomination. Lulu Wang was robbed of a nomination, if not for director, then at least for screenplay. It could have been up for several awards, really. Mm-hmm. It should have been up for Best Picture, frankly. That one and Knives Out should have taken that blank spot and probably kicked Once Upon a Time in Hollywood out of the mix. That would, or Ford v Ferrari. One of the two could have made room for the. We should have had Knives Out and Farewell on the list. But it was good.
So who would you have kicked off the list in order to put Awkwafina up there?
Let's see. We had Renee Zellweger, Saoirse Ronan, Scarlett Johansson. I kind of hate to say it. It probably would have been Cynthia Erivo. Just because they were all phenomenal performances, but hers was probably the least phenomenal of the bunch. And
what was she in?
Harriet.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't know why I was thinking something different.
Right. And she still had that music nod, which was pretty awesome. I thought all of those were solid performances, but either Erivo or even Renee Zellweger, maybe. I
don't know. I might have kicked Scarlett. I know you wouldn't have.
I thought she was excellent in Marriage Story. I really did. I thought she was excellent.
I don't know. I feel like she was not as good as Renee Zellweger, though.
They were close. Really, it was Saoirse and Charlize that I would not have kicked off at all. They were the solid ones. Well, the most solid, I should say. They were all solid. Every one of them was, and then that's again unusual that we have such a solid actress group this year.
Yeah,
but still,
there were definitely good performances.
Yeah,
to me, it's really. Though it really kind of feels bad, to, even though at least it's not trying to replace the one diversity person with somebody else that's a white actress, but it does feel bad, nice
It would have been nice to have more diversity, I admit, but again, here's where giving Wang the nominations for director and screenplay. That would have gone a long way too. I mean, a female Asian director for Best Director, that would have been pretty awesome. It would have been. And bear in mind as well, if you've not picked up on this, The Farewell is a semi-autobiographical, is based loosely on Wang's own experience, so, that's kind of cool.
Any other...
I think that's it that I went to see.
So let's go to Inside Movies Galore.
Okay.
Boy, we started back with the with our double feature, Master of the Flying Guillotine and Fantasy Mission Force.
I've got so many here for Movies Galore.
And because you participated in some of the pre-shows that I did not.
Right.
But I think you've got the Jack Frost is where you started. Yeah. Because we actually. Beforehand, we caught all the others.
Right.
Now, Master of Flying Guillotine, is about this, about this guy who's in a tournament, and he is the one-armed boxer, and he apparently took out these other two guys. They were trained by this master, the Flying Guillotine, and he gets quite angry about this and decides he's going to go kill him and anybody gets in his way.
Right.
And that's basically it.
That's basically it. And it makes a hell of a lot more sense overall than Fantasy Mission Force. But both of these were fun. We've already watched the discussion if you want the most detail there.
Yeah, we don't tend to, we just kind of mention these briefly as we go.
And then, of course, you mentioned already briefly Jack Frost. I think you'd probably already watched it beforehand, right?
Oh, yeah, multiple times.
So I'll go ahead and just leave it at that. Watch that discussion as well. We finally, this week, got around to a discussion that I prepared for some time ago. Robert Rodriguez Mexico trilogy, which is El Mariachi, Desperado, and Once Upon a Time in Mexico. And my collection also came with a short film by Rodriguez called Bedhead that I went ahead and watched just for fun. And so all of those are fun films.
Yeah.
I am a big Rodriguez fan. And,
They are good films.
Yes, and so we had a good discussion on that. So again, check that out.
Well, since we're hitting pre-shows, I'll go with one that you won't be in on.
Oh.
It'll be next week's pre-show.
Okay.
It was supposed to be this week's, which is Evil Dead Trap. Evil Dead Trap is a fun Japanese slasher film. I actually watched it. I've watched it twice now. I just enjoy it. It's on YouTube. If you have not, if you want to catch it, it's on YouTube. The sequel is next week's main event, and I'll be curious. It'll be the last of our run of second chances.
Which incidentally also included Sideways, The Night of the Hunter, The Changeling, and Cat o' Nine Tails, which we have all good discussions.
Yeah, and Cat o' Nine Tails was the one that was the only one that the person who put it up did not feel that it was redeemable.
I think he ended up being the harshest critic on it.
And actually, we've left one out for our winter viewing, which was Devil's Pass.
Oh, yes.
Which was Mo's last submission, and that was a found footage mountain feature.
It's actually pretty good. I was not sure what to expect with that.
And
one more pre-show one that we had was River City Rumble, part of a salute that we intend to do to X Strike Studios.
If we survive long enough.
If we survive long enough.
They were not very happy with that film. But
well, it's not exactly a good indicator of things to come.
I will admit, though, the other films were better. This one was probably the roughest cut. But it was also their first film, so, there's only so much.
Right.
As much as I like the Gamers, the Gamers itself does not have the polish that Darkness Rising does.
Right.
And nowhere near.
But it's still good. And it's not quite as rough as River City Rumble, though.
That is true. Though Silent Horror is going to be our one that we're going to be doing the first week of March.
Yeah.
So it's going to be fun.
And then the reason why we're pushing back Evil Dead Trap 1 and 2, I guess, I feel bad about this. And if you're... if you have not already tuned into this week's Movies Galore, you definitely should. But I'm going to apologize. I'll probably keep apologizing.
For getting Mo's pick and then pushing it.
Changing the schedule so late in the game. But it's my fault for not paying attention when he scheduled my birthday pick. But my birthday pick is a twofer where we are covering Preston Sturges' classic 1940s film Sullivan's Travels, and the film it begat, the film by the brothers Coen, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And we'll also be talking, at least incidentally, about Down from the Mountain, the concert documentary based on the concert they did as a promotion for the film.
Have you done their rewatch?
I have rewatched all 3 of those, and I am very much excited for this discussion, which, of course, at the time of filming, we have not done yet, but we will. And we've got that going on, and it will be fun. It will be good times. And so join us. Join us.
Actually, you might be the only one to have watched the concert beforehand.
Really? Well,
on
it's my
YouTube?
fault for pushing it forward. What's that?
Are you? Is it?
Do you not have it?
No.
You should have told me that. I could have brought it.
Yeah, it's if it's on YouTube, I might catch it before, but otherwise, I probably won't have seen it either.
I don't know why I thought you had it.
Nope.
Oh, whatever. Anyway, whatever. I know Dave won't watch it because he doesn't believe in supplemental material. But
And Dustin may not. Dustin will only be there for part of the discussion.
I hope he changes his mind. But, because Dave did put up Sullivan's Travels. It's available.
Oh, you're giving him the option to get out, which is not covering a brother until you completely finish Sullivan's Travels.
All right.
So
All right.
we'll see how it goes. It's going to be interesting. Of course, we'll already have had it discussed. All right, we're done with Inside Movie Floor. We're finally into the regular viewing. There's a lot.
Oh, there is.
So I'm just going to knock a couple out early on. I'm going to knock Jojo Rabbit off of the list because, well, I mean, we've already talked about that.
Yeah.
And I saw, actually, you saw Parasite in theaters.
I did.
Did you talk about it?
I believe so. I was trying to think about that at the start, but that was the same weekend where I went to see everything. It was like that one, Knives Out, Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, and Bombshell. That was a good weekend.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure I did cover all those.
Well, I saw Parasite.
Yeah.
And I did really enjoy it. I look forward to watching it again. I'm not sad to have gotten this, even though it is coming out on Criterion. That's all right, because they're going to probably eventually re-release it on Criterion when it's had time to stew.
Hopefully.
And have a better release, and I'll get it when it comes to the second release.
Yeah.
Or they will release a collection.
Yeah, I was going to say, 20 years from now we'll get Bong Joon-ho collection.
Which would be cool to have.
It would be.
But Parasite is, since we're actually into the review portion of this,
Yeah.
a movie, if you haven't heard, about this family of people who are kind of grifting the system. And they all latch on to this wealthy family. And they all end up gaining jobs, doing one thing or another, through that family. And eventually, this comes back to haunt them later. It's a really well acted and well done film. It keeps you on the edge of your seat. If you have not seen Parasite, you darn well should. And it's not like there's any shortage of theaters showing it right now. And it's not like the DVD is scarce. You can even get it on Amazon.
Yeah. Who knew? All right, so I'm going to also lead off with a really badass Asian program. When we started this, I was still tripping my way through the series. I've long since finished the series and finally watched the movie for the series, Hanasaku Iroha Blossoms for Tomorrow, and the movie Hanasaku Iroha Home Sweet Home. I believe I talked a little bit about my overall impressions of the series. It is basically, you've got this young lady named Ohana, who is the granddaughter of a woman who runs the Suiso Inn and has a very strange and seemingly flaky mother who writes, is a reporter, basically, writes reviews, including for inns, you find out. It's a very gorgeous series, wonderful music, wonderful overall animation. The characters are very intriguing. Most of them wear on your nerves at one point or another, but partly that's because they're pretty well fleshed out, well realized characters, and most of well fleshed out characters run the risk of annoying you at some point or another. And it's a really great series, and I'm not sure I would go quite top 10, but I definitely agree with you. It's one of the best series out there.
It's it really gave me a bad first impression.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I gave it another shot. And after it ramps up, it really is a very good and well written series.
Now, the movie is slightly disappointing, in part because of one of the few complaints I have about the series, but it's a mix. It's not a strong complaint. It's more of a, and that is the series ends on a very bittersweet note. Very bittersweet. And it's one of those ones that kind of makes you really wish that there was more. You're kind of glad it ends where it does, because you're like, there's no way it would stay this great. But on the other hand, you're really, is this all? I want more. And then I had, for some reason, I don't know why, for some reason, I had locked in my brain that the movie was a sequel. And I don't know where I got that from, and that set me up for failure, because it's not. It takes place at some indefined point, not within the last 2 or 3 episodes, but probably within the 2 or 3 before that. So kind of like the Cowboy Bebop one, it takes place near the end, but not at the end. And it's not really a side story, but it kind of, one thing it does do, which is really cool, is it takes time to flesh out some of the side stories, some of the side characters. The mother and a couple of the other individuals get a whole lot more characterization in the movie than they had gotten. So it's a really great piece of the series, but definitely don't make the mistake I did. Be aware that it's not a sequel. It's definitely part of the show. It might not even hurt to stop before the final block of episodes, watch the movie, and then, Yeah.
I need to rewatch that series. I'm hitting all my Oscar viewing.
I'll probably move to
Oscar-winning and nominated viewing.
Right.
Because I doubt we'll have time. Actually, I might even get to the end there. We've got like 9 minutes.
Yeah.
But right before the Oscars, we watched Judy. And it was worth the watch. It is the story of the last year of Judy Garland's life. And how she she struggles with emotional baggage that was gained throughout her life, and the drug and alcohol habits that follow it, and were kind of forced on her by Hollywood, essentially, and takes it from, well, all the way up through her time in London, and to the last concert she had in London, but not her last concert, but probably one of her most famous last appearances.
Well, more like a series, but yeah, series of appearances. But yeah.
So it was a very interesting but hard to watch story. If you don't like watching these stories where you get people suffering for the entirety of the movie, don't watch this.
Right.
But
it really does look like she's struggling to keep it together for most of it.
But it is a very good acting job by Renee Zellweger.
All right. So, one of the ones that I watched in a little bit of preparation for the Oscars was Missing Link, which I believe most of these we've talked about at some point, so I'm going to try to be kind of brief. But Missing Link is a film from Leica Studios about a very self-important, is probably a good way to put it, self-important individual who wants to join an explorers club full of even more self-important individuals. And they all think he's a bit of a loony because he's going after all these mythical creatures and all this kind of stuff. And he ends up coming into the acquaintanceship of one Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever name you might want to go. Voiced, the main guy is Hugh Jackman, and the Bigfoot is voiced by Zach Galifianakis. And the Sasquatch has a request. Would you please help me find more of my kind? He's learned about the Yetis in Asia and thinks that that is where he needs to go. And so these two enlist the aid of the explorer's friend's surviving wife, who's voiced by Zoe Saldana, and who very reluctantly joins them on their group. And they get all the way. They do make it to Asia, only to learn that things are not what they thought they would be. So kind of like Jojo Rabbit, this was very much a story of tolerance and getting to learn things through a different perspective.
I'm glad it won the Golden
It was fun. It was a pleasant surprise, but a surprise nonetheless that it won the Globe.
So,
yeah.
I'm going to end on one not Oscar related for me.
Oh, yeah.
Which is the Jay and Silent Bob reboot. This was a fun film. It was not as good as Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, but of course this takes place years later. Matter of fact, Kevin Smith came with his movie tour this Saturday to Richmond.
I wish I could.
I could have gone to see it, but it was just too much money, too hard to get through. It would just I wouldn't have been able to get it. But still, this is years later, and they have their own chicken shop called the Cocksmoker, which was opened up like right next to the Stop and Go. And they end up getting basically arrested by police, but then find out that their names have been copyrighted, so they're no longer allowed to use their own names. So they have to go to Hollywood once more to stop the making of the next Blunt Man and Chronic film, this time directed by that evil director Kevin Smith. They really... Several people give this guff for not being Jay and Silent Bob, like, of old. But you gotta understand, this is a slight distance away from when they did their last film. Sure, it's a distance away from when they did Clerks 2.
A little bit, yeah. And
these characters have aged, and they have evolved. It's not as hilarious as the original, but it definitely has some cool parts and jabs that are related to the series as a whole, and a heck of a lot of cameos. You even had Matt Damon reprise his role of Loki briefly for the thing. It was just really, really cool to see all those cameos. It was really a love letter to early Kevin Smith.
Did they bring back Salma Hayek and Chris Rock from that movie?
I'm pretty sure. I know that Chris Rock was brought back, but I can't think of. But I don't think he played that character. And Salma Hayek, what did she play?
Well, in Dogma, she was the muse.
Oh well, no, they did. The only Dogma character was Loki. I do know that they also brought back Amy from Chasing Amy, which was kind of cool. And it was, like I said, it was cool to see a lot of the characters in their roles.
Right.
As I said, it was a love list. It was a love letter to the View Askew-verse.
Right.
And
I need to see that.
For those people who do like that, it's pretty damn cheap for a new Blu-ray. It originally priced at $30 and then fell to $14 on its release.
And there was a deal on Amazon. I was looking. I don't know if it's still going, but there was one that I was looking at that was involved in, but I didn't end up going with it. So, would you say that did a better job of fan service than Avengers Endgame?
It was its own end game.
Okay. So I'm going to end with one last one that is an Oscar one that I have seen since the last time we met. So I know I haven't discussed this one. And that is The Lighthouse.
Yeah,
I did finally see that.
that's a drug trip.
Oh, it is a trip. It is a trip. I can see why it was up for cinematography, because that was some pretty cool camera work.
Yep.
Very old school, not just because it's black and white, but it felt like the camera angles and everything is kind of Wellesian in a way, which was probably intentional, I would imagine.
Yes.
And then you had very interesting performances, a very dour Robert Pattinson and a very old salty sea dog character played by Willem Dafoe. And I think Dafoe in particular seemed to really... he was having a good time with that role. Pattinson supposedly hated every minute of making the film, but he's apparently very proud of the product. Yeah. But they really put him through the ringer. I've read
That's like an exercise in suffering.
Yes, well, I understand they blew him down with a fire hose on multiple occasions, and that was just like the tip of the iceberg. But yeah, it was a film. It's kind of an exercise in suffering to watch it, but it's a fascinating movie, and I'm glad I did see it. I'm kind of glad it didn't really win any Oscars, but it certainly deserved to be nominated for cinematography. Yeah.
And just as an aside, I also watched Missing Link in The Lighthouse during this period.
And Judy for me, I didn't.
Yeah. Well, might as well get those off the list since we've talked about them.
Right.
And so next week, we're going to probably... If we mention any of the other stuff, it's going to be very brief, but I think next week really needs to be one of our review-a-thons where we go straight through and just hit movie after movie after movie until we can get this stuff taken care of.
And I've got a couple of books I've read in this time too. There's been so much stuff. Like I said, I still have my Christmas list here.
I have 2 video games I've beaten. That tells you something.
Wow.
So, a lot of fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see you next week.
Yes, indeed.
So, you take care, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
Goodbye.